Hello everyone and welcome to a Halloween edition of Jigsaw with Jamie. Happy Halloween. I'm filming this a few days before Halloween, but I suspect you will be watching it on or just after, so I hope you're all enjoying yourselves and are not too spooked by the spooky season. As you can see today, I'm attempting the Simpsons Halloween Special. I'll be talking quite a bit more about the Simpsons in a moment, I'm sure. As usual, I have the edge pieces here, the central pieces around the sides, the corners I think are in the right place. I'm not too sure about these two pieces. If you're joining in with a puzzle today, then get yourself comfortable, get yourself sorted and play along. Otherwise, if you're just watching, then make sure you're nice and relaxed and we shall get going. So I'm going to start with the edge, and the edge pieces that stand out quite a bit are Marge's hair. Before I get into talking about The Simpsons and Halloween, this episode's recommended charity. I think given we're talking about The Simpsons and Halloween, which is a big event for children, it could only be Save the Children. So as usual, the link will be below if you have something spare that you can donate. I'm sure they would appreciate that. So when I was thinking of doing a Halloween video, there was only one puzzle I wanted, which was a Simpsons puzzle. I love The Simpsons. I've been watching it for years, still watch it now, much to the annoyance of my family sometimes. Absolutely loved it. Used to be on 6 o'clock on a weekday when I was younger, which was just about the time I would have got home from school, and if I was lucky, missed dinner. So I was able to watch an episode. Used to be on with Star Trek, which also has kind of led to my love of Star Trek. I'm sure I would have enjoyed Star Trek regardless of whether The Simpsons was on. But like I said, when I was thinking of doing a Halloween episode, The Simpsons was the only choice, really. So every year The Simpsons do a Halloween special. For those of you who have not watched The Simpsons, you're going to learn a lot today, I suspect. So every year they do a Halloween special called The Treehouse of Horrors. Every season apart from the first, I think, if I remember rightly. I don't think there was one in the first season. It kind of picked up later on. And Treehouse of Horrors is a Halloween montage. That's not the right word I'm looking for. Collection of shorter pieces. So it will usually have 3 kind of 7 to 8 minute long pieces. The Simpsons themselves, they're about 25-minute long episodes when you factor in American adverts, which can be extensive. And they would. I've just noticed I've got a edge piece over here, which is never a good start. And noticing I seem to be missing a few edge pieces, or they're not fitting together as neatly as I was expecting for this happy haunting. Or I've just seen it. I think that goes there. There we go. That's what I've been missing. Yeah, so about 25 minutes long an episode, and the Treehouse of Horrors will consist of kind of 3 shorter stories, standalone stories that would be about 8 minutes long on average. Some longer, some shorter. I have to admit the Treehouse of Horrors episodes were not my favourites, partly because the shorter storylines I wasn't overly keen on. Just another one here. It's not being too great in my setup, my spotting. But equally, the other reason I wasn't a huge fan is a lot of the references, especially when I was younger, I missed. Didn't really watch much in the way of kind of spooky films, horror films, things like that. Not really my thing. So when you're watching films which were frequently parodies of horror films, it was difficult sometimes to work out what it was I was watching. It's going to go down there eventually. So the Treehouse of Horrors weren't always my favourites. I preferred the standard episodes. The thing about Treehouse of Horrors as well is they would frequently they stood on their own, so things that would happen in Treehouse of Horrors would invariably be forgotten about in the next episode, so they weren't canonical, I think is probably the phrase. Clearly some very unusual things would happen, and characters would be playing kind of fictitious people from horror movies and things. Yeah, but The Simpsons themselves, as I've already hinted, were absolutely top TV. They still put out some good episodes, although, like many die-hard Simpsons fans, you hear people talking about that it's not as good as it used to be. I think people complain about things not being as good as it was when they were younger all the time, don't they? But certainly I think the style of the episodes has changed and the quality. So not always a huge fan of the newer stuff, but the older episodes were brilliant. I think I suspect I've lost another edge piece over here somewhere, but I'm struggling to spot it. So we'll just keep persevering. So for those of you who have never watched The Simpsons, firstly, why not? Go and get an episode on, go and have a watch. Secondly, you will be unaware, if you've no idea about The Simpsons at all, of kind of the plot. I haven't lost an edge piece. It just doesn't look like it fits too well. These pieces don't fit together brilliantly. A lot of them have kind of bent out of shape. So you might see me fiddling to get them in line quite a lot. So the Simpsons follows a family. You can see here you've got Homer and Marge, mother and father, and you've got Bart, Lisa and Maggie, the three children, and they have a variety of pets. There's a dog, Santa's Little Helper, and a cat, Snowball 2, and a variety of other pets pop up at times. And the story is basically their lives and the adventures that they get up to. They're usually comical, as you probably can guess from the cartoon. They're usually ridiculous. Homer seems to get himself into bizarre and unusual scenarios more often than the average person. They're really good fun. Nothing too serious. Don't take themselves too seriously. And like I said, I've watched certainly the earlier series. I've watched quite a few times. Most of the episodes. I think my family are probably sick of me quoting certain episodes at them, and particular lines that I find amusing. It's the kind of, especially if you get a good episode, it's the kind of TV you can just go back and watch again without having to worry too much about feeling like you've watched it all before. And they can be very clever, so there may be things in them that you missed the first time. So actually going back sometimes to watch it again can be useful. Finding these edge pieces are proving to be a bit of a challenge at the moment. I'm almost tempted, because we've got the writing down here, I'm almost tempted to see if we can get these words in line. I said that's going to be the G, isn't it? Said all that. Now there's a second N, of course there is. See if we can get, there we go. So I can see the letters stand out fairly obviously. So I might just get on with some of them. That's good. And just as a way of making some progress, things had stalled quite a bit. So, as I said, Halloween, the Treehouse of Horrors, not my favourites, but certainly still good fun to watch. The reason not always top of my list is that Halloween's never been kind of high on my list of holidays that I really enjoy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people who stood there cursing when kids come knocking at the door or anything like that. If we're in, we'll have some sweets waiting for them. Not that much of a curmudgeon. But I tend to find, certainly the last couple of years, my wife and I have tended to be away for Halloween. Not intentionally, but we just tended to book a holiday or weekend away or whatever. Obviously, COVID dependent. So one year we were staying in a yurt or a wigwam, I think it was. So that was obviously much more COVID safe. We tended to be away for the last couple of years, so not done the whole trick or treating. Well, if you're watching this on Halloween, I will be in this year, so I may well be up and down at the door as video me speaks. So I might be bouncing up and down to answer the door. We've got the sweets in. I've got myself a mask, which I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do on the video cover this time, but I suspect the mask I've bought may make an appearance. You might have seen the mask on the thumbnail when you click the link. So I won't move in that, just in case I do decide to use it. Okay, slightly unusual way of approaching this puzzle, because it's a lot of the pieces are falling quite nicely into place. This is Bart, who we're making up here, who is supposed to be a vampire. No, that's not Bart's. None of these eyes may well be Bart's. Yes, they are. So I'm just going to keep going up here, I think, and see how far it will get. Because it's certainly making some progress. The edge pieces are much more challenging. We just sneaking a look at the time. 15 minutes in already. I'm coming up to 15 minutes. Okay. So yeah, Halloween, not the highlight of my year, but still something that I will get involved in. Did used to kind of go trick-or-treating in the local area when we were younger. Interestingly, so I went to a Catholic school, or a series of Catholic schools. So I went to Catholic schooling throughout my entire education. And when it comes to kind of Catholic schools and things like trick-or-treat, Halloween, there's various responses that you get depending on how seriously people take their religion. in my primary school, we had a head teacher who I think saw Halloween as basically a pagan ritual or something. I never quite explained her issues with it, but she certainly didn't like it. And that particular head teacher just happened to live on the corner from where I lived. By around the corner, I mean I had to walk past her house to get to school, so really quite close. And she would suggest that if she caught any of us trick-or-treating, we'd be in trouble. Now, firstly, I'm not sure what she could have actually done, because there's nothing, it's not something we were doing during school time, so I'm not sure what she could have actually done to, I think punishing us would be a little bit on the harsh side. But the other thing that never really made any sense is, part of Halloween is dressing up in costumes, masks and the like, so unless she was going to make every child that knocked at her door take off their mask so that she could see what they look like, I'm not sure how she'd know it was us. Obviously she probably had an idea that some of us lived close by, so I might have been more likely to get caught than some of my friends who lived a bit further away. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what her grand plan was really with that, other than I guess trying to frighten us so that we didn't do anything, and she wouldn't have to punish us. I don't think it put me off. Yeah, I don't think it's the reason why I'm not the hugest of fans of Halloween. I don't think it's kind of scarred me for life or anything like that. But it just does stick with me. It's stuck with me for years, that kind of veiled threat. No, not so veiled, I guess. I do probably prefer bonfire night, so I kind of mentioned in my last video that you may have watched before this, part 1 of the 5th episode, that I'm much more a fan of bonfire night, which is celebrated in the UK and some other Commonwealth countries. So basically 5th of November, a group of Catholic, there's the Catholic coming in again, Catholic radicals, I think is probably the politest way I could put it. I think nowadays we call them terrorists. A group of Catholic radicals attempted to blow up Parliament. This is with the King present, with the Lords, with everyone who was anyone in the country would be present, and for religious reasons they felt they were being persecuted, and certainly that's not an unreasonable belief to have. Catholicism for parts of history was illegal, but they attempted to blow up Parliament. How far they would have ever got with that, I think, is debatable. There's standard conspiracy theories that they were set up, that it was all a set up to try and out some radical Catholics, and that Parliament was never in any danger. That the security services or whatever that meant at the time were well aware of what was going on, etc. So there's all of those, but essentially a guy called Guy Fawkes was caught in the act, had a large amount of explosives in a room under Parliament. It was the old Parliament building, not the one you can go visit today. The old Parliament building which burnt down, so a much different design, and I understand it's quite a bit easier to get close to Parliament. So if you were someone of means, you could just rent a room nearby, and I don't think anyone batted an eyelid. So they attempted to blow up Parliament. They were caught. Well, Fawkes was caught, tortured, and eventually broke and gave up some of his co-conspirators. Although, as I said, the conspiracy theorists will have you believe that the state knew who they were already. It wasn't. They didn't need Fawkes to break, but I'm never particularly conspiracy minded. I think there's enough crappy things that governments do which are real, without having to worry about them trying to do fantastical things that some conspiracy theorists come up with. So Fawkes was caught, and a few others were caught. There was a shootout. Some of the conspirators were killed, so they died in the kind of shootout. But a few were caught, tried. But again, by tried, I don't think much of a trial. There's never a chance they would be acquitted. So it's not really a trial, is it? If the only outcome is guilty. But they were convicted and sentenced to death. And it's all so far so grisly, I'm sure. The bonfire night is the celebration of the king's deliverance. So the king was saved, and as to kind of as remembrance, to try and remember what had happened, it was kind of decreed that bonfires should be lit, and over time that's built up. So we have bonfires, fireworks, which I used to really enjoy, and I still to a degree do enjoy watching, but my dog does not. So I'm becoming more and more of a hater of fireworks as he suffers with them. But yeah, we'll have fireworks, bonfires. There's something called Penny for the Guy, where kids will make mock Guy Fawkes, and they usually take them around and try and raise money. People would kind of give them some money for a penny for the guy. They don't tend to do that as much nowadays. No, certainly not in kind of where I live. May well happen in other parts of the country. Some places really take it quite seriously. There's some towns. There's a famous town whose name escapes me at the moment, further down south, where they get they're still kind of religious fervour, and they will dress up as they'll burn kind of effigies of the Pope and things. Still go on about Catholicism being the root of all evil and things like that. Yeah. Most of the rest of the country has moved on, and it's now a secular holiday. There's no kind of religious connotation to it, really. But it's good for me. It comes very close just after Halloween. Sorry. So I tend to kind of consider them together, but as I said, I much prefer bonfire night. So, certainly making progress without actually going to the edges. Like I said, the edges were quite. I do remember them being tricky. I had, as usual, had a go at this puzzle beforehand. This puzzle was an online purchase. It was open, so I definitely felt like I had to give it a go. I got lucky. I think all the pieces were here, and it did take me a little while. It wasn't the quickest. Picking up some speed now with the central pieces, but we've still got the edge to to finish up, which might slow us down again. I'm running out of looking for yellow. Yellow, the Simpsons skin stands out quite a lot in this puzzle, so I'm looking for yellow. But also where Homer is green, Jimmy's supposed to be Frankenstein's monster. As the old saying goes, was Frankenstein the monster? Let's see, I think this is going to go here somewhere, possibly a little bit further up. Okay, so as I say, I'm not a huge fan of Halloween films. And I can't say I really read much in the way of Halloween, not Halloween, kind of horror and horror writing. It's never really been my thing. So to a degree, when it comes to what kind of Halloween horror references and things, it's not that I miss them all entirely, but I don't not always kind of fully aware of what the reference is. Obviously, I'm aware of Frankenstein. And this is Marge, I suspect, is supposed to be the bride of Frankenstein. Obviously, Lisa's an angel, and Bart is Dracula by the looks of things, or a version of Dracula. Yeah, the kind of classic gothic horror type stories I'm aware of and kind of get the reference, but modern horror. My wife is probably more of a fan of horror than I am. Not kind of going out and seeing every movie that comes out kind of fan, but she does like particularly 90s kind of teen slasher type films, which really are not my thing. I've seen a couple with her, kind of the I Know What You Did Last Summer type films and things. Really not for me, but for some reason she quite enjoys them. So I've actually watched a couple. We did a thing a few years ago, kind of when we first met, where we'd watch a Halloween, like a horror film. We'd pick a horror film each, so we'd have one choice each. And then sit and watch them at Halloween, obviously up and down to the door if there's any kids knocking. Not really done that for the last couple of years. That was quite good fun. Kind of get to watch a couple of films. Like usually I pick something fairly low intensity horror. So probably my favourite horror, if you can call it a horror film, is Sleepy Hollow. I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes at this point. It's not a horror film, but that's the kind of horror I like, kind of gothic-y horror. So that's what I chose for the first film that we watched. Like I said, my wife chose more of the 90s slasher type films. The obvious one, I think we did. I think we watched Scream. The first of the Screams. The problem with that is to me it's ruined. Not ruined. It's certainly lost its kind of real horror after the scary movie films, which I did watch growing up, which is slightly odd because they obviously heavily reference. So the scary movies heavily reference kind of horror films. So for someone who's not really seen any horror films, or not seen many, it's probably not the best film or group of films to watch, but I did actually really enjoy them. They're just good old-fashioned stupid, really. those kind of parody films are ones that I kind of quite enjoy, kind of comedy parody films. Some of my favourites are things like the Naked Gun series with Leslie Nielsen, and the Aeroplane series. And Leslie Nielsen appears in one of them as well, but they will always have me laughing. I used to have a friend from school, and we briefly, when we got our first job, we kind of worked together, and he loved the films as well, particularly Naked Gun films, and we'd on a Monday evening, our job would be to kind of stock up the store again. I worked in a supermarket, stock up the shelves ready for the next day, and we'd get left to our own devices to a degree, because the manager would be off doing kind of stock take or paperwork or whatever, so we'd be left to stock up, and we got on obviously with our job. We made sure we got all our work done, but we were free to chat away and talk. And we went through a phase, I think we'd just rewatch the films each, the Naked Gun films, and spent much of the time quoting lines from the film to each other. Like I said, we'd get our work done, but might have potentially been more efficient if we'd have focused a little bit. Not kind of ashamed to say that. Yeah, I can find myself getting easily distracted by other people when I'm at work. Not someone who can 100% just turn off and kind of ignore the outside world, which I think is part of the reason why home working has been such a good thing for me. I do find I'm extremely productive when I'm at home. And I know some people don't like it, and some people with vested interests, I suspect, who feel that people are less productive when they're at home. But I don't think that's true. I think it's not for everyone, and obviously not every job can work from home. I understand I appreciate I'm quite privileged in that I'm able to do some of my work from home. But I definitely tend to find I'm quite productive at home and get quite a bit done. Don't necessarily, I'm not ignoring the phone. If someone needs me, they need me, but I can kind of ignore emails and the like for a little bit and just get on with my work. I work for the NHS, so that's much of a secret, because I'm a psychiatrist, as you can probably guess from my handle, my name. I work for the NHS, and we're obviously doing a lot more back in the office now, but I am still working from home periodically. So I'll usually do, while seeing patients in my clinic and kind of going on visits and meetings and things, when it comes to paperwork in particular, I do try to do that from home, because I just get more of it done quicker. I think I probably can have all my letters dictated in an hour or so at home, whereas it might take me 2 or 3 hours with distractions at work, people knocking on the door asking for things. So certainly for me personally, still having that opportunity to work from home is very helpful. But I know not everyone likes it, and not everyone can. and it can be very isolating. I think I'm as much as I kind of get stuff done when I'm at home. I'm also valuing being able to get into the office from time to time, seeing colleagues and kind of bouncing ideas for if we've got particular issues, by kind of bouncing ideas off people. It's, you can obviously ring them, speak to them on the phone, but it's an awful lot easier to do it in person. So, okay. What I've realised is that I'm not 100% certain that all of these, well, I say I'm not 100%, I know that the ghosts floating around the background don't line up perfectly with the image on the box, so you probably can't see the image too well anyway. I can, and it's not really much help for getting this puzzle solved, which I suspect it's probably not unusual in that the puzzle doesn't perfectly line up, but in this case, if I just was to just follow the puzzle, follow the box, I would get nowhere. It doesn't perfectly line up. That looks like that edge, and as much as it isn't clearly finished, I think that is done. So nearly got the edge done. Only who knows how long into the puzzle. But I've got quite a bit more of it done in the middle as well. There we go, and that's going to pull across to there, and that's the edge done. Perfect. So, all we've got to finish now is the inside. As I said, it becomes a little bit more challenging. I can just see there's some writing here. So this is the signature of Matt Groening. I believe it's pronounced Groening. So he is the creator of The Simpsons. So he created the characters, and still is kind of heavily involved in the production. Probably, I suspect, not writing and directing as much as he used to do. But he's still involved, I'm sure, and his name appears kind of at the start of every episode. They also tend to pop shots at him from time to time as well. And they'll break the fourth wall and talk about him. And usually something along the lines of calling him a third-rate cartoonist, something like that will be the joke. So whether that's Matt having a pop at himself, or I suspect more likely that's some of his colleagues who are writing the episodes having a go at him. Okay, the darker pieces certainly feel like they should all be fitting down here. There we go. Just trying to get on. It's quite a challenge as well. I've got the lights on obviously so that you can see what I'm doing on the video, but it makes it quite a bit harder because the pieces are quite reflective. And that goes in there. So I'm having to, hopefully you're not hearing me move around too much, but I am having to move to be able to see what I'm placing and where. Anyway, so as I said, it's not Halloween yet when I'm filming this. It is the Thursday before Halloween. Make sure I give myself plenty of time for editing and things like that. So there's not a huge amount of editing goes into these videos, but I do need the time to make sure I get it done. So I'm filming it on the Thursday night. This weekend is the last of my long weekends. So I've actually got Halloween off. Should have probably mentioned that earlier on. Yeah, I'm actually on annual leave during the day. Going to be doing some DIY finish up. I'm sure there'll be a picture appearing on my Instagram feed when it's done. So you might well have seen what I've been doing already, if the picture has appeared. But yeah, I'm off on Monday, on today for you. And on Saturday, so 2 days ahead for me, I'm actually going to the Rugby League World Cup with my father-in-law, which will be fun. I've not been to a Rugby League match in years, many years. I went to a few when I was younger. Apologies, you might be able to hear movement in the background. My wife's just moving around upstairs. So, those of you that are not fans of rugby, it's not something that's kind of popular where you are. Certainly, it's the UK, Australia, New Zealand, France, Ireland, kind of the big rugby nations. But so it might not be something you know huge amounts about. But there are actually two versions of rugby. There's rugby league and there's rugby union. The story I was told as to the difference. So rugby union, I think, came first, and it's quite a heavy impact sport. If you kind of YouTube kind of rugby union hits, you'll see some really big hits, and especially as the game has become professional. It used to be amateur, now it's professional. Some really big hits and some potentially serious injuries, and it tends to be favoured down south in the UK, so it's more of a southern game. The story I've heard is that it was played more in the north, where I'm from, but workers were playing it on a weekend and finding themselves black and blue with kind of injuries and basically not being fit for work come Monday morning. And mill owners, the bosses, weren't too happy about that, obviously, because their workforce would come in and not be able to work come Monday morning. So the story I've heard is that they adapted the rules to take out the big hits, and they invented rugby league, which is a different set of rules, similar in some ways, but very different. And one of the things is the big hits, the big tackles, and the like. So that's the story I've heard. How true that is, I'm not 100% sure, but it certainly sounds plausible. Not necessarily quite as much of an issue anymore, but partly because where bosses, factory owners don't necessarily have that much of a direct impact on our lives. I'm sure, obviously, the people, farmers running the economy and things, they do still have an impact, but not so much that they can kind of demand changes to sports rules so that their workers are healthy. And the other thing is that over time the impacts in rugby league have become quite big as well. Certainly the level of hits is low still. It's not quite at the level that rugby union is, and the physicality is still there. Rugby league is probably a bit of a quicker sport. It's quite quick and knackering. So coming from a northern town where rugby league is the predominant sport, the predominant kind of code, that was what we played at school. So if we were playing rugby, we'd play rugby league. To the extent that I don't think I really had any knowledge at all of rugby union until I went to university, where pretty much everyone I became friends with were from the south, and union was their game. So I quickly had to learn about union, and I do enjoy watching rugby union now. It is a fun sport. I can see why it's attractive to people. But yeah, I played almost exclusively rugby league. So yeah, going to the World Cup, which is on in England at the moment, and we are watching England playing Greece, I think. My father-in-law's bought tickets. It's in Sheffield, which is not a million miles away from where I am right now. We're going to get the train down to Sheffield, watch the game, and train back. Not going to be staying over or anything. It's easily doable in a day. That should be good fun. So it's been a long time since I went to a game. I've watched plenty on TV and the like. It's a long time since I actually went and stood in the stands, or sat in the stands. And I think we'll be sitting. It's a fairly large sports stadium. We're going to Bramall Lane, which is one of the football stadia in Sheffield. It's been commandeered for the World Cup. I suspect they needed something a bit bigger than your standard stadium that the rugby league would have played in. Rugby league is a popular sport in the north of England, but it's certainly not got the kind of following that something like football has, soccer if you're an American. Rugby union similar. It's a popular sport down south, but not to the degree of football. So the stadia do tend to be a little smaller. I mean, the national stadium, Twickenham, for the rugby union is obviously large, and 80,000 seats or whatever. It's a large stadium like you'd see for any sport. But often the kind of the standard stadium will be smaller, will be even kind of standing room only at times, no seating and things. But it would be good to do that. So that's my plan for Sunday. Entirely sure what I'm going to do. Sorry, that's my plan for Saturday. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do on Sunday. Obviously, by the time this comes out, I'll have an idea. It might just be a case of relaxing, not doing very much. And then on Monday, as I said, I'm going to be finishing up the DIY. My dad's coming over to help. I say help. He's leading the work. I'm playing lackey, kind of fetching things. So that will hopefully be done then. It's not a secret I'm doing some decorating. Like I said, you've probably seen the pictures already. So we're fitting a fireplace. I might as well tell you, like I said, it's not a secret. Fitting a fireplace and papering, some wallpapering. That, when it is done, should be the house. So the whole house decorated. I think I mentioned in a previous video that will be the whole house decorated. Apologies, I'm struggling with these. Like I said, these ghosts are quite a challenge. So it will be good to have have everything finished. I'm sure at some point we'll start again. A bit like the Forth Road Bridge. Once it's finished, you got to get cracking on touching it up again because it's ready to be done up. But I'm not planning on doing that too soon. Certainly not this year. This will be the last bit of DIY this year. I do need to get in the garden. Quite a lot of things need cutting back. The bushes in the front of the garden are getting rather overgrown. It's getting a bit difficult to park the car. So I will at some point in the not too distant future get in the garden to kind of tidy it up for the winter. But otherwise, the work in the house, I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna do anything else, which I'm quite looking forward to. Not being kind of intensively doing DIY. Kind of maybe every fourth or fifth weekend would be doing something to the house. So it's not a huge amount, but it just, I think it takes longer than you expect. I think that's the thing. I say, oh yeah, I'll get the decorating done in by lunchtime or whatever, and you get to lunchtime and you've done one coat of paint and you've got another two to do. That can get quite frustrating. So I think having a bit more time to do other things isn't being kind of up to my elbows in paint will be quite good. At some point I'm sure we'll be redecorating. You never stop to a degree, but I will be taking a short break. I think I'm probably rambling a little bit because I'm conscious that I'm getting towards the end of this puzzle, and when I get towards the end, it's taking a little bit more of my energy to focus and get this completed. Hopefully you've enjoyed it though. It is a good puzzle, very thematic. But other than the characters, it's a bit of a challenge. I feel like we have almost conquered it. Of course, that goes there. Four pieces to go. I think we can pretty much say this is done. That's going to go in there. We need Lisa's head. Goes there. This piece, no, all the way around. That piece goes there. And then the final piece goes in there. There we go. That is the Simpsons Halloween Happy Hauntings puzzle. It doesn't quite sit down perfectly, but I hope you all have a happy Halloween. If you're trick-or-treating or whatever, and if you're watching scary films, make sure you've got something to hide behind. Otherwise, I will see you soon when normal service will resume, and we'll be carrying on with the Great Britain puzzle. But otherwise, happy Halloween, and I'll see you later.